This is the Corsair TX 650 watt power supply. It is an 80 plus model with a 5-year warranty. It is also SLI ready, and I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a minute. I actually just did recently a bit of a feature on a power supply that I would recommend for kind of a basic configuration, you know, onboard video or a basic to mid-range video card. But this is what I would consider more like a step-up model. So when you're starting to look into getting like a gaming setup, this is sort of where I would begin your search, is with something like a anything in about the 550 to 650 watt range is going to be pretty good as long as you're running a single card. But you know what, why don't I focus on the unboxing first, because I'm getting a little bit distracted here. Okay, so let's have a look at the basic features of the TX 650. It is 80 plus, okay, that's pretty good. It is here, this is a big one for power supply quality, is that many power supplies are actually rated at unrealistically low temperatures. And any power supply is going to operate more efficiently at a low temperature. That goes for many, many electronics. This power supply is guaranteed to deliver its rated specs even at a reasonably high temperature. That's a big one. Okay, you got a dedicated single 12-volt rail, so it doesn't matter what you plug into what connector, you're never going to trigger your overcurrent protection. And then we've got high-quality Japanese capacitors, and we have compatibility guaranteed with dual GPU configurations. That goes into the whole SLI ready thing. I think that pretty much covers it for the basic specs. And then we have the connectors included, which is covered by a sticker very conveniently. I'm going to go ahead and remove that sticker from the... Okay, I'm not going to remove that sticker from the box. Why don't we just look at the connectors when we open it up? Make life easier for myself. Oh, I went and opened it from the wrong side. Well, that's not very good, is it? Got my ruler knife today. Slice that open. Okay, so let's have a look at the TX 650. It comes with the same manual as the TX 750. There's some good stuff in there. I'm sure that if you buy one, you'll read it. Next, we have a power cord. This is just your bog standard PC power cord. Yeah, of course, there includes some black zip ties, so you can manage your cables without using ugly clear plastic zip ties, and they have a little powered by Corsair sticker. Very nice. They also include some black thumb screws. Goes along with the overall black finish of this unit. Use black thumb screws to attach it to your case instead of the standard silver ones. All right, let's have a look at the connectors included on this power supply. And I do want to talk a little bit more about my whole power supply selection guide that I'm sort of working on here. Now, I recommended the Seasonic 400 watt for a basic power supply. This, like I said before, is where I would start for more like a gaming or a more powerful system power supply. So if you're configuring your system with something like a Core i7 CPU, or you're putting in a dedicated video card like a Radeon 5850 or higher, you should be starting at around a 550 to a 650 watt quality power supply. You can see that as you step up into a more gaming-oriented power supply, you start to see a few key improvements over a more generic one. So first of all, you've got a black finish, because many gaming cases have windows these days, and so it can be important for the aesthetic look of your system to have a black power supply rather than like a gray hunk of unfinished metal sitting in the bottom. That's one of the reasons that people tend to choose a more gaming-oriented power supply. Next, you got sleeve cables. So instead of your rainbow of colors coming out of the power supply and then running all over your case, you've got nice black cables that will just kind of terminate in just a little bit of color. It gives a much tidier look, and it has the additional benefit of not blocking airflow as much, because when you bundle the cables together, it's easier for the airflow to get around it and not cause dust buildup than if you have it all kind of running like this, acting as a web to catch all that dust and random stuff. Okay, so we'll have a quick look at this power supply just in general. You got your Corsair TX sticker on the side, very sharp looking. Their power supplies always look good. You've got your rated amperages on the top of the unit, so you can see I talked a little bit in my Seasonic one about how a strong 12-volt rail is so important to a good quality power supply. This 650 watt unit can provide 624 watts, almost its entire output, on the 12-volt rail. Very cool, very good to see. Next, we've got a standard 120mm fan. You tend to see 120mm fans in most of the gaming units because they do run quieter, and the last thing you want when you fire up your gaming computer is to hear nothing but the sound of your PC rather than the actual sound of the games. Next, you've got an on-off switch at the back, a standard honeycomb grill, as well as a power plug. In terms of connectors, gaming power supplies, you'll find all of the standard stuff. So you're going to have your 4+4 or 8-pin CPU connector. You're going to have your 24-pin motherboard connector. Next, you're going to find lots and lots of SATA cables. So this power supply can actually accept up to 8 hard drives natively with 4 SATA connectors on 2 dedicated cables. So a gaming power supply, a more high-end power supply, is going to give you more expansion options for the future because you've just got more connectors. Next, you've got a bunch of Molexes. Usually you don't run into shortages on those these days. And then this. So our 400 watt unit only had a single PCI Express connector, whereas this one has 2 6+2 pin PCI Express connectors. That means that you could either plug in 2 video cards that each accept 1. So you could plug in a couple of 5770s or a couple of older generation ones, or you can plug in 1 video card that takes an 8-pin and a 6-pin, something like a 5970, so like a dual GPU graphics card, would run very comfortably off something like a TX 650. Or you could plug in 2 separate video cards that each take 8-pin connectors. So you've got a lot more options when you start to move up into a higher quality unit. So basically what I would say is if you're configuring a gaming system and you're planning to maybe go SLI or Crossfire in the future with a couple of sort of mid-range GPUs, this is where I would start, and then looking at sort of other units in that particular price range.